there is something about modern society that is toxic. For all our science and medicine and technology and education and government, all of which is fantastic, modern society still does something to the soul. And I would argue this is more true now than ever before, as we're living at this key inflection point in the human story. When the history books are written, they will point to 2007 as just as important of a year as 1440. 1440, if you remember from high school, was the year Gutenberg invented the printing press, which launched the Protestant Reformation, which transformed Europe, and out of that, the world. 2007 was the year what? Exactly, you all said it right there, that Steve Jobs unleashed the iPhone out into the wild. It was also, you might not realize this, the year that Facebook became open to anybody with an email address and went from a college or high school campus thing to a global phenomenon. It was the year that a microblogging site called Twitter became its own platform and also went global, and a whole list of a number of other technological breakthroughs, from the App Store to the cloud to Intel's shift to a silicon chip right here in town, all right around the year 2007, the official start date of the digital age. The world has radically changed in the last decade. If you're 20 or so, it's all you've ever known. But if you're just a little north of that, 23, 24, 25, you remember a time when infinity wasn't in your back pocket. You remember standing in line or sitting on a plane or looking out a window on a train with nothing to do. You remember that? There was this thing in the late 90s that we used to call boredom. A lot of you are way too young to even know that was a thing. It was a thing. I grew up with it. Remember, there was a day when a snow day was actually, you were off work, you were off school, like Wi-Fi is great until it starts to snow, and then you have to actually have a job still and all of that. Now we can't imagine living with something that didn't even exist a decade ago. And I'm not a Luddite, there are all sorts of pros to the digital age. Uber, how great is that? It's a terrible company, but it's a great idea. And I Uber home every Sunday night because I don't like to ride my bike in the freezing cold of winter and the dark. Maps is fantastic. My little brother is in London right now. We're texting all day today. Hey, go here, go there. I'm going to FaceTime with a good friend also in London in a couple of days. Like, there's all sorts of pros to the digital age, but we rarely talk about the cons, and there's a lot. But here's one of, I think, the most dangerous, and that is our attention span, and this is a statistical fact, is dropping with each passing year. I read that in the last 3 years, it's dropped from 12 and a half seconds to 8 seconds. My first thought was, wait, 12 and a half seconds was our high point? Wow, we don't have a lot of wiggle room here. We live in what economists are calling the attention economy. Literally thousands of apps and devices are trying to distract you 24/7. Our new normal is what Microsoft researcher Linda Stone calls continual partial attention. You have people like Tristan Harris, I don't know if you've read his work, a former product philosopher for Google and Silicon Valley insider who left the industry to start a nonprofit with the sole purpose of arguing for a Hippocratic oath for software designers, because he's seen behind the curtain and he's seen that right now everything is designed, it is intentionally engineered by some 20-something in San Francisco for distraction and addiction, because that is where the money is. Pretty much the only place left where we can be alone with our thoughts anymore is in the shower. And once they make a waterproof Apple Watch, it's like the beginning of the apocalypse at that point. Like, we will never have a good, original, creative thought ever again. Now, why does this matter? Because this new milieu of distraction and addiction is robbing us of the ability, the core, essential human ability to be present to other people, to ourselves, and more than anything, to God. And in doing so, it is robbing us of our soul. Andrew Sullivan, who's a fascinating writer, did a provocative essay for the New York Times Magazine that he titled, "I Used to Be a Human Being." And the essay opens with him checking into a meditation center and dropping his iPhone in a basket to be locked away for what is essentially a digital detox. And there's all sorts of great stuff in his article if you want to give it a read, but I love his closing paragraph. He writes this: "There are books to be read, landscapes to be walked, friends to be with, life to be fully lived." That's kind of, yep, that's great. But then he says this: "This new epidemic of distraction is our civilization's specific weakness." Let me read that again. This new epidemic of distraction is our civilization's specific weakness. And its threat is not so much to our minds, even as they shape-shift under the pressure. The threat is to our souls. At this rate, if the noise does not relent, we might even forget that we have any. Haunting way to end an essay. I can't help but think of Jesus' warning, what will it profit a man if he gain the whole world yet lose his what? Soul. And when I say soul, I mean, to clarify, I don't just mean that our emotional health is at stake, although absolutely yes. But it's more than just I'm overbusy and I'm in a rush all the time and I live with this low-grade anxiety as my new normal and I'm not well and my immune system's shot. Sure, it's all of that, but it's our spiritual life. We feel at distance from the God that we were created for a relationship with more than anything. As Ronald Rolheiser put it, and I read this last week, or a month ago when we had church, we are distracting ourselves into spiritual oblivion. So the question is there a practice from the way of Jesus? Is there a time-tested, millennia-old way of living that would set you and me up to thrive right in the middle of all the chaos of modern society? And the answer is yes, absolutely. It's the practice of silence and solitude.